Hi, I'm Josh from Vacuums R Us Sewing 2 in Colorado, and today I have a DC14, a Dyson DC14 on the bench. This machine was brought in for the typical symptom of it just doesn't suck, and in fact does have suction, but it is not functioning for a number of reasons. We're going to do a full service on this, which is a typical breakdown. We clean up a bunch of stuff, service the brush roll. We're also going to replace the clutch with a reconditioned clutch. And we're going to replace both filters as well. First thing, my front end has done a great job here. They've set aside the parts that I need. I've got 2 filters. We're also going to be replacing the lower hose when I'll get to why that is so stinking important. It's super common on these machines, and we get a lot of these machines in. They're one of the most popular models of Dyson that they produced. And they had a series. It was the DC07, the DC14, and ultimately the DC33 was the last model in this series. There are hundreds of thousands on the market. For any number of reasons, their performance at this point has dropped significantly, and we see them every day. And the customer says, well, it just doesn't suck anymore. Typically, the suction is not the issue, actually. It's typically a number of other issues unrelated to suction, but we're going to improve the suction as well through a couple different things. So first thing I always do is I plug it in to verify that the front end did an adequate assessment and didn't miss anything. Make sure the motor sounds okay. Got good airflow. I actually have no brush rotation whatsoever. Typically what happens with these, they come in, and if you turn the machine over, the brush will be rotating, but if you apply the slightest amount of pressure to the brush roll, it will cease to rotate. And so what happens is the customer will think they have a broken belt, right, or whatever. They turn it over, they see that the brush is spinning. They're like, well, the belt is not broken, so there's nothing wrong with this vacuum. And this is typical with all vacuums that use the old rubber style belts. Then what happens is when the brush contacts the carpet, there's a little bit of resistance. Those belts will slip, the brush will stop spinning. Now, the effectiveness of your brush is more than 50% of what decides whether your vacuum cleaner actually works or not, how well it works is the effectiveness of the brush roller. These machines, these series of Dyson have an atrocious brush setup to begin with, so the performance is profoundly low. If you've ever been in a vacuum store, you'll probably notice that they actually have one of these for demonstration. And part of the reason they have them for demonstration is that A, they were the most popular Dyson, and B, they're horrible, always have been horrible. So they're able to use these, and we have these in all our stores because this is kind of the metric, right? If you have 10 people walk in, chances are 3 of them have this machine, they're bringing this machine in for repair. So it's great to have one there to show them what it works like when it's fully functioning against real vacuum cleaners like Procar or Sebo or whatever. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to take the can off. I'm going to remove this filter. This filter is real tough to get out. There are little tabs down here, the tab here, and then there's a tab here on either side. They're super tough to get out without breaking these tabs. So Dyson states that this is a lifetime HEPA filter. I'm not sure, you can actually see it right there, lifetime HEPA filter. And I guess, you know, lifetime is subjective. I'm not sure what lifetime we're talking about. It could be a fruit fly's lifetime. I'm not exactly sure, but when we pull this filter out, you'll see why I suggest replacing them. On these particular models, these filters don't get as bad as other models. And fortunately, Dyson doesn't pretend that these are washable. They call them permanent, but you can see what the filter currently looks like. Now, for reference, I'll grab a new filter here real quick. And that's what they originally look like, right? This is an aftermarket filter. I don't know if genuines are even available anymore, and I don't really care. The aftermarkets we stock are really good filters. So I'm going to remove that. I've removed the canister. I'm going to go ahead and also remove the pre-filter. Pre-filter on that, you can see, is pretty dirty. And so the thing is with these pre-filters, you can wash them. Very common. People will wash these filters. So it's very common. I mean, these will be washed. The issue I have with them and any of these design vacuum cleaners is that those filters over time are going to build up a lot of mold, funguses, mildew, pollen is going to stick in there and not quite get out. The filter is going to clog over time as well. I'm going to be popping the base plate. Here. And so I like to replace the filters at least once a year. They're not cheap. It's not free. It is what it is. I really prefer to do that just because of environmental health concerns. It will increase performance a little bit, but not, not particularly dramatically. So now we've got access to the brush bar chamber here. You can see that this belt is intact and is not broken, but the brush is still not spinning. This is actually a 2-belt system. So Dyson chose on this system, they put in a clutch mechanism. The idea being if you hit something, the clutch mechanism will protect the belt from breaking. The problem is they use rubber belts, and this is the larger of the 2 rubber belts. There's a smaller one inside of there, and they stretch over time. And I'm just cutting this off because we're replacing this clutch. It's easier to cut it off and just pop it right out. So they wear and stretch over time is what happens with them. So I've cut the belt off. It's easier to take the brush roll out by just cutting the belt off. So this is the larger of the 2 belts. The other one's smaller. The smaller your belt, the less wear area, the faster the belt's going to stretch and wear out. So we'll pop this out. We'll get back to that in a minute. So this is the super tough part. Pay attention. If you're skipping ahead in the video to find the relevant parts to you, this is the relevant part to everyone who's doing this job. So stop here and watch this. If you're going to screw something up, this is what you're going to screw up. So these machines at this point are very brittle. They're older. The plastic is brittle, very easy to break. And this this purple part right here, the brush bar housing, right, is attached to the machine. It just snaps in right here on the end, right? And frequently what happens when we have to pop this out to get the clutch out, frequently what happens is these little pieces right here will snap off when we go to pull this out. And at that point, you have to replace this entire housing right here. The housing is discontinued. We occasionally have them pre-owned, but we hold on to them pretty tight. We charge a lot of money for them because when we're doing jobs like this, like what I'm doing here today, we know that there's a significant chance that I'm going to break this taking it off. And we want to have a stock of these to take care of that, because if we break it, customers aren't typically real thrilled about that. So a couple of things that you can do to make it easier to take it off. Some people will put oil in this to make it slide out faster. I use isopropyl alcohol as a lubricant all over the place. Oil is a little bit better of a lubricant, but what I like about isopropyl alcohol is that it evaporates and does not leave a residue. So I'll put a little bit right in there, put a little bit right in there. I take a large screwdriver and I'm going to put it under here, and I'm going to hold up here and I'm going to kind of wiggle and it'll pop right out, right? Same thing on this side. I'm going to hold it and it'll pop right out. So we popped out without breaking anything. Down here, we have a hose right here, and this hose we're going to be replacing. I'm going to take over this changeover valve. Put that up there. So this hose will pop out similarly like that. I'm going to remove the hose so I remember to replace it. And I'll talk here briefly about why we're replacing this hose. So this is the old hose. You can see that it's bent into place, as it were. I have the new hose here, and this is a new hose right here. See, the new hose is not bent yet. This is bent into place. So the way these work, these hoses have metal wires in them, and they're a spring, right? And the hose applies pressure to this head and allows this head, kind of makes this head stay flat on the carpet. When the hose wears out, sometimes, or when it retains a shape like this, the head will be bent like this and won't have full contact with the carpet. These machines do not have great airflow to begin with. And so by having the head bent sideways, you create an air leak out the front or back of the machine, and they pick up even worse than they already do. Additionally, it also won't hold the brush, the brush won't get good contact with the carpet. So we replace these. They're like 12 bucks or whatever, 12 or 13 bucks. This actually makes a huge difference. So the customer comes in and says, my vacuum doesn't suck. It does. There's other things going on, and this is one of the other things that's going on. So I'm going to do something. I didn't give the disclaimer at the beginning of this video. These videos are done as a public service. If you break something, we are not liable. If you electrocute yourself, we are not liable. Watch the entire video. If you feel like you're not comfortable doing this repair prior to attempting a repair, stop, bring it into a local dealership, and they can do the repair for you. Do not bring the machine in pieces after you have already attempted the repair. None of us like that. Many stores will not even accept repairs that have already been worked on. So watch the video. If you have any misgivings about whether or not you can pull this off, don't do it. So this plastic cap right here has to come off in order to get the clutch out, right? And so what I do is I put a screwdriver right here, and you have to be quite forceful with this. I take a screwdriver, make sure there's nobody over there who's going to lose their head, and I hit this thing really hard, and it pops right out. Now, provided that you hit it hard enough and with enough force, you will never break. I've never broken one of these. The only time I've seen them broken is on new techs who are kind of worried to hit it because it's plastic and they don't want to hit it hard, and they kind of tap it, and they kind of dance around it, and they end up breaking the thing. If you give it a good hard smack, I have never seen one get broken doing that. They'll fly across the room, so be careful with that. So now we're going to take the clutch out. There's a shroud over the clutch. I'll tell you what size Torx bit that is here momentarily. I think it's a T15. Yes, it is. It's a T15. So you're going to need a T15 Torx bit. These are something you can get on Amazon. Just do a search for Torx T-15. If there is a local business that's managed to survive the onslaught of Amazon and is selling tools, there's a lot of Ace Hardwares out there will likely have this. Go ahead and support your local business. They probably have a better product. They'll get it for you today because it's in stock. And they may even, they might even have some advice about the project you're working on. So there's 3 screws, 1, 2, 3. There's a hole right here to access the 3rd screw. Pop this out, pop it out again. This one's hard to just kind of wiggle it around, and eventually we get it in there. There we go, got it. This one's a toughie. I usually try to leave the screw in there so the screw comes out with a shroud. My Torx is actually magnetized, so it's pulling it out. And then we have the shroud. I'm going to pop this over so I don't lose these screws. These are pretty unusual screws. And so here we see why it's not spinning at all. It's the small belt has broken. The small belt is broken on us and burnt right through. And it's incredible how stretched this belt is too. If you saw the original one, it's about half that size. And again, the issue is they're using belts that are realistically too small for this purpose. So I'm going to pop the clutch out. And the way I'm going to do it on this machine, I'm going to apply some pressure from this side. And I'm going to kind of wiggle it out. And it'll pop right out. I'm going to save this clutch. I'm going to set it aside. It will be rebuilt at another date. We sell rebuilt clutches. We sell rebuilt clutches on our website. I'll try to make sure that they get the link to that posted in the description. So at this point, we're ready to put the other clutch in. I'm going to pause though. I'm going to take this outside. We have an air compressor out there. I'm going to blow all the dust off. I'm going to blow the dust out of the cyclone as well. I'm going to take this apart and blow the dust out of it. There's probably a lot of debris in here. One of the evils of this type of design is that the canisters, the cyclones, they get a lot of dirt inside of them that just builds up over time, and that will also lower airflow slightly. The filter change and the cleanup like that will increase airflow to a degree. So I will be back momentarily with a cleaner machine. All right, so we've blown out the inside of the cyclone with an air compressor. We've also blown out the brush bar housing. One last thing I'm going to do before we start putting this machine back together is we're going to go ahead and we're going to service this brush roller. You've probably seen, if you've watching the other videos, you've seen a brush roll service. They all go very similarly. A lot of people don't know the end caps will pop off of this, and you'll find a lot of debris inside those end caps. You just kind of grab the end caps, twist back and forth, and pull, and they will work themselves off. And you can see that I've got debris inside of there. This will pull out entirely. I've got more debris inside of here, right? All kinds of stuff. I can look inside there and I can see the bearing is now clear. The bearing is clear in there. On this end, there's some debris you see sticking here. The reason it's sticking is that this area here started melting, and it actually melted that debris and attached it to it. So that's part of the reason why we service these, is because the heat from the friction of the brush spinning will start melting stuff. This side's not melted. This side is melted. You can see the abrasions right there. It'll start melting this, and then the debris exasperates that issue. The debris will melt into it. I'm going to take this brush that has the hair all over it. I'm going to take this to our wire wheel and clean it up real quick, and then I will be back. We'll grease it and put it back together. All right, so we're back. The brush roller is clean. If you've seen some of our other videos, I've done videos of actually cleaning brush rollers on the wire wheel before, and you do need to show caution with these particular Dyson DC07, DC14, DC33 brush rolls. The bristles are very brittle. And if you have an aggressive wire wheel, you will actually strip all of the bristles off the brush roll in the process of cleaning it. So you may want to get a softer wire wheel and just use a kind of a light touch. So I'm using this is actually sewing machine grease. I'm just going to put a dollop in there. Won't reach, so I'll use a Q-tip. We'll put a dollop in there. Nothing scientific about that. A little bit over there as well. You can also use oil. You can use like 3-in-1 oil. That works well too. I prefer the grease. I think it lasts a little bit longer than oil does. But anything is better than nothing, which is what we started with. So I'm going to put this back together real quick. And so the tabs on either end need to point generally in the same direction. They'll move back and forth, but I generally put them in the same direction. Verify that we're spinning free. We're not spinning quite as free as I would like, but oh, there we go. As the grease starts to move around, it's going to spin a little bit better. Yeah, we're looking good there. So we're going to we'll put this machine back right here. Okay, so we're going to put the clutch back in. I've got a reconditioned clutch that we have previously reconditioned. There are a bunch of clutch rebuild videos and tutorials on YouTube. I'm not going to make one ever because there's so many of them out there already. It's not needed. You know, like most YouTube videos, they make it look easy. So there's this ridge right here, right? You've got this ridge that goes around right here, and then on the clutch, you have this channel right here. And that's what the clutch drops into that. And you kind of have to wiggle it to get it in there just right, because it kind of goes in sideways and then snaps into place like that. You probably see I've got that lined up there and that lined up there. If you don't get it, you can pinch it so it's not lined up. You're going to have major problems when you put it back together. So make sure you're lined up like that right there, right? I'm going to take a large screwdriver and I'm going to stretch this belt back and pop it on. I'm going to hand roll it a few times so that my belt is now centered. As you hand roll it towards yourself, the belt will center itself in the middle of the clutch pulley in there, right? And so these two screws right here held in, they go into the top of the shroud, right? There's a pin right here on the shroud, and then there's a spot right here. It's right here that pin will go into. You need to make sure that your shroud gets in right. And there's another channel right here on the shroud. That channel goes on this channel on the clutch. And that all has to go in just right. Oh yes, and another channel. There's a channel here that goes in right here on the motor housing. This is the motor bucket. There's a channel here that this snaps into. So this channel is going to snap in here. There's a rod right here that's going to go in there. And then there's another channel here that will go on top of the clutch. And you kind of wiggle around till you get everything where it needs to be. And then it will just snap right in. Let me make sure I'm going to pop it out one more time. Yep, I'm good. Okay, now I can screw it down. I've got 3 screws, again, that are holding this together. I've got one. Hold on, Beagle. The Beagle just got to work. Where'd he go? Beagle! Yes, hello. Thank you for coming to work today. Thank you for coming to work. Yes, yeah. Are you going to do good things today for the vacuum cleaners? Okay, all right, said hi to the Beagle. And one more screw. All right. So if you have a clutch on your drill, always set it to your lowest setting or close to it so you don't break any plastics. This thing that we took off before that went flying across the room, it has a notch right here. That notch lines up with this little bugger right here. And you smack it on. That's all there is to that, right? So now I have the hose. One thing I did do, I took this to the sink and I actually washed it. That's not going to necessarily improve performance, but there was some buildup on there, and the more buildup you get, the buildup starts sticking to each other, right? So it's good to take care of that. I'm going to go ahead and screw this on. Depending on the hose you get, the hoses we have right now fit perfectly, but there are some hoses on the market that are insanely tight. And if you get one of those, you can heat it up lightly with a heat gun or hair dryer to get it on here. Alternatively, you can also dip it in very, very hot water to get it hot enough to go on there. The ones we sell, they go on just like I just put it on. They're easy. But there are some that are just a little bit smaller. They work fine. I don't know that they're any more likely to tear. And then this goes down here and it just pressure fits on. You wiggle it again and it will pressure fit on. Now you see how my hose is kind of bent right now? You want to turn your hose until you're like this. And you'll see that spring action is what I was talking about, where that thing acts as a spring to get your head in correct contact with the carpet. That's what I was talking about. So now I'm going to put the brush roll back in, which is the most difficult part of clutch installment. I've already done a clutch install video where I did this. I'm doing this with 2 screwdrivers. There is a tool you can buy. I have not had great success with that tool, so I don't use it. So I get a screwdriver down in there, and I hook the belt, and I bring it up like that, right? And then I'll twist it a little bit, and I might push in right here. So on most of these Dysons, 07, 14, and 33, there's a solid plastic piece right here, which is meant to reinforce your bumper to allow you to apply pressure to it when you're lifting the belt to put the clutch on. So hold your brush by the non-belt end. Make sure that your belt end is here. Make sure that these ends are, generally speaking, turned in the right direction. Hold it here. And then you'll see how I have this on my bench, right? So I can put my body against it to stabilize it while I'm doing this. And then I can use my screwdriver as leverage, and I'll hook the end of my brush in there. And then I'm going to wiggle it around until I get that puppy on there. And you can see I've literally done this thousands of times, and it is still not easy. Put it through, and you always have to be careful when you're doing this not to overly stretch the belt. And that's the thing, right? That's part of the reason I don't like the belt lifters that are sold on Amazon for this purpose. They break really easy. But they stretch the belt out big time. So I'm going to hand roll this. That's very, very important, because hand rolling it will get that belt set and centered inside both the clutch pulley as well as on the brush. If you do not hand roll it, you could have the belt offset slightly and pinched. When you turn it in, turn it on, you'll get that classic grinding clutch sound, and you may potentially burn your belt. So I hand roll it, and that's turning both belts to make sure that everything gets set. I'm going to put my changeover, or U-bend rather, over there. I had also washed this to make it cleaner. So a lot of the stuff we do doesn't have any actual impact on the performance of the machine. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start cleaning the machine off externally now. It has zero effect or impact on the performance of the machine, but we are doing this as a service. We're charging for this, and we want to make sure that it's clear that something happened to the machine, right? We did something. So we sent it out looking pretty. It's kind of like when you get your oil changed at a dealership, they'll offer you a free car wash, right? You can't see the oil change. That's actually the only thing that mattered. The car wash doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it looks like. That's not why you brought it there. But the car wash adds to that experience, right? And makes it clear that the people who had your vehicle took good care of it, and now it looks pretty. So we do some external cleaning of the machines for the same basic purpose. This is probably relevant for vacuum cleaner technicians, shop keep, stuff like that. This is relevant information for you guys. You'll have a much better experience with your customers if you spit polish the machine. And I'm going to show you how to do that. It's about a 3-minute process. It is not a big deal. The machine will look great. I'm going to show you the chemicals that I use to do that as well. They're readily available chemicals. And I'm sure in our Boulder store, everybody's convinced that they have chemical allergies to those, because that's another universe. But most normal people do not have allergies to general all-purpose cleaners or denatured alcohol. So I've gone ahead, I put the aftermarket filter we have. It doesn't come with the gasket attached. It's a separate part. So I just put the gasket on that filter. That's all I did there. They come in they come with the filter. We just attach them. So pop that filter in. I'm going to go ahead and put the filter cap on. You're much less likely to break the filter cap putting it on than you are taking it off. So So I got that on and off without breaking it. Look at me go. So now I'm going to get to the external cleaning part. So what I do a couple things. I have a long, it's called a chip brush. Get these at the hardware store. They're like $1. They're a great cleaning tool. I'm going to take my chip brush and what I do is I have some all-purpose cleaner. I think this is a Lysol brand or Mr. Clean. I don't know, but it's just a general all-purpose cleaner. You get a gallon of it. It's watered down about 1 to 8. So it's about 8 parts water. And I'm gonna get this brush a little bit wet, not soaking wet, but I'm gonna get it a little bit moist, right? And then I've got my shop vacuum right here with a crevice tool. And I'm just gonna go through and I'm gonna brush out through here with this brush, vacuuming the entire time. And get the crevices all cleaned up and pretty. Turn it around and do the same. Depending on the model of vacuum cleaner, you know, some machines, the way they're designed, there's a lot of nooks and crannies. The pain in the butt. You know, some machines it's a little more straightforward. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same to the top of the canister here. And that's looking good. All right. And that's just an all-purpose cleaner. We use Mr. Clean, Lysol brand. Sometimes, I think Mr. Clean is what we use mostly. So next step, I have what's it's called Denatured Alcohol. You're going to find it in the painting section in your hardware store. It's used as a paint thinner or stripper, I believe. It's like a really light paint stripper. It's not super harsh. So on these machines, you'll see there's like white paint flecks from the machine hitting the walls, particularly on Dysons. They don't have rubber bumpers. Rubber baby, anyway. So when you hit the wall, you leave Mars all over the place. So I spray it with denatured alcohol. I have a Scotch-Brite pad. And that denatured alcohol, because this paint is not really set on it, the denatured alcohol comes right off with a Scotch-Brite pad. It takes the paint right off. You can see the paint's now gone. But what it's going to do is it'll leave this white film of the paint residue. There's now a white film on the machine. I'll get to that momentarily. So again, this is something that does nothing to improve the performance of the machine. It just makes the machine look better. We charge 2 hours of labor. It's a 2-hour bill total, which is about right. I'm fast. I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm going to come in under 2 hours, but we've got QA has to happen out front after I'm done with my work. So for 2 hours, we're going to give them a pretty vacuum cleaner when we're done. So next, we've got that white film on there. That's where our all-purpose cleaner comes back in. We have a rag. I'm going to spray this a little bit. I don't always spray the machine directly. In this case, I am. And then we just go through and we just give the machine a wipe with this all-purpose cleaner. There's a final stage that you can do if you so choose. There is such a thing as vacuum cleaner polish, believe it or not. You can polish the machine. I personally do not do that. Some technicians do. I don't like doing it because the polish itself is oily to some degree. And as the machine sits on the bench waiting for pickup on the shelf, we have dust in the store, obviously. The dust will settle and then stick to that polish. So I don't like using it because I feel like I get the machine clean. It's clearly clean. Then I use polish and the polish is sticky. People take a week to pick their vacuum up. By the time they pick it up, I've got a layer of dust on it. So I personally don't use polish. If you do, there's another polish called Fred's Citrus Shine. Fred's is like a private label. It's a smaller label cleaning supply company. Amazing cleaning solutions. Their stuff is like literally the best I've used in its categories. The only reason we don't use their all-purpose cleaner is because frankly we don't need a very good all-purpose cleaner for this. This is just dust. But Fred's has something called Citrus Shine, which is really actually very good for cleaning, for polishing vacuum cleaners. So this is done. I'm going to vacuum the bench off real quick. So I'm going to do my final test on this bench, and I want it to be clean so we don't pick up a bunch of junk in our newly cleaned vacuum cleaner. So what I do for a final test on the lower filtration machines like Dyson, Shark, stuff like that, these machines tend to develop an odor because the plastic absorbs it, and because they're not using a bag, you're not getting rid of that odor. So I have what's called Nilo Fresh. It's a large particle carpet freshener. The other one that we have that's very popular is this Feather Light Clean. I don't know what it is, but it's very light, very large particle. That's very popular. I use the Nilo Fresh because it actually is cheaper, and it stinks. It's got a very like soapy clean scent to it, which is what I want to kind of have with these machines when I'm done with them. And I leave that inside here because it deodorizes and it perfumes the machine. That's bad. So this will be a good learning video. There is something, I'm gonna take the can back off again. There's something causing the clutch to stick, right? So I can move it, but not well enough, right? So something's going on here, possibly a pinched belt, any number of things may be going on. Okay, so we found the problem. It was pretty simple, actually. When I was wrestling with the belt to get the brush roller on, I actually had flipped this belt, and it was actually pinched inside. So all I had to do is I took this off, right? And then I saw that the belt was flipped and just went ahead and flipped that over. And we are now up and running. I'm going to go ahead and put this back on again, and we will get our final test done. So that wasn't so bad. Everything's got to be lined up just right when you get these clutches in here. Don't freak if you get the grind the first time. It's probably something as simple as that. You saw it here first. So you can see the carpet actually lift up. When I pull this back, you'll see it make contact. And you can see now the vibration. You can see that debris is actually going in the front. You see it flying around in here. I turn it off, and you'll see that the debris all drops to the bottom there. That's the scented stuff. If you were in this tech room right now, you would also smell the fruity smell of that deodorizer permeating the entire tech room. So this machine is good to go at this point. I'm going to do up my tech notes explaining what it was that I did, which in this case is mostly just a bunch of check boxes that I replaced this, and this, and service that. And these guys will be back in business. Hopefully we'll get another 3 or 4 years out of this if we're lucky. And hopefully next time it fails, they will buy a real vacuum cleaner.